Hey, I'm Tommy Chong. Welcome to High on Homegrown.
Yes, everybody, and welcome to High on Homegrown, the Cannabis podcast from PercysGrowRoom.com. In this week's Grow Guides, we're going to be talking about tips and tricks to help you have a better, more successful grow. Just random things that we learned throughout our growing experience that we would like to pass down onto you guys to help you guys out. And if you have any suggestions and feedback and tips and tricks that you'd like to share with us, then you can either go to the YouTube video and leave some comments there, or you can find us on social media, send us an email, and we'll cover them in next week's listener mail. So if you have anything to add to any of these, then please do let us know. We're always happy to take on suggestions. So anyway, lots of tips and tricks in this episode, some great questions in the listener mail section at the end as well, so make sure you stay tuned for that. But for now, let's just get stuck in with the Grow Guides. I'll speak to you at the end of this. See you in a bit. So this is Grow Guides, like episode 41, I think. So we've been through a lot of shit so far. We've covered absolutely everything you need to know about growing cannabis. And I think it's time for us to go into more detail on some specifics of the whole growing process. But for now, for this episode, we want to talk about tips and tricks, just simple things that we've learned through our own growing experiences that we think might be useful to new growers or even experienced growers who haven't heard these tips and tricks before. Maybe random MacGyver, that guy, remember him?
Yeah.
I know more, he's Jack O'Neill from SG1, you know what I'm saying? Good TV.
Okay. Yeah. The guy who used to invent things out of nothing.
He was Survivor MacGyver.
The guy that could diffuse warheads with a paperclip and a rubber band.
Yes.
Build a bazooka out of cardboard tube and some mothballs. Yeah.
Yeah.
I prefer MacGruber.
MacGruber.
What is that?
KFBR 392. KFBR 392. Fuck yeah, I love that show.
So advice for stoners, man. Yeah, let's does anybody have any good ones which they want to get off straight away? What's the best advice you would offer? Yeah, that's definitely a good one, man. Don't get too carried away. Yes.
Lots of Cal Mag.
Be serious, TG. Some people don't know you're joking, bro. Or are you joking?
Well, I mean, if the situation calls for it. Yeah, no. I agree. Keep it simple, you know. Don't overreact when shit's like, what is that? Like, oh my God, I gotta fucking go to the grocery store, buy everything, buy every fucking poison and do everything all at once. So I don't know what actually fixed it or made it worse, you know.
Yeah, usually when you start doing that, you're doing more damage than good.
Yeah, so chill and
take a path. Go that direction.
One of my first tips, therefore, would be based on what we've already just talked about is join a forum because you're going to have questions no matter where you are at on your growing journey. And there's somebody who has answers, and maybe pick up a reference guide like the Cannabis Growers Handbook by Ed Rosenthal or Jorge Cervantes. Both have great books that we talked about actually a couple of episodes ago.
Yeah, man, the forum is going to be a major one. And Percys Grow Room is the best one out there, you know, being biased as I am sometimes.
And free.
Yeah, it's completely free. And there's so many good members out there. You're not going to post up anything and be like, can somebody help me with this? And nobody's going to be there like, oh, why is your leaf yellow? You're such a shit grower. You shouldn't be even getting involved in this shit. Because some forums are like that, like legit.
We don't allow that at Percys.
Yeah, that's some bullshit, man. We only have good advice over at Percys.
That's it.
It's an easy way to get yourself kicked.
Yeah.
We like a good vibe. So if you're over there to help people, hey, you're welcome. Come on.
So if you're a new grower looking to get into it, then Percys Grow Room is the perfect place for you. You can learn all the basics very easily. Loads of good people, and you know, it's a place to talk about your new hobby as well, which is important. Having that sense of community.
Yeah, believe you. My missus doesn't want me to talk to her. The only place I can talk is Percys. So yeah, by all means,
she
go over to Percys.
Does she just sort of like listen for a little bit and then of like that just glasses over? Is that that's what I get?
She'll come in here She'll say, hello. Oh, you're on the call. She'll say hello. She's out. She's done. That's it. It's pretty much, she doesn't want to see what's in the tent. She only wants to know what's in the jars. And she wants to, what she say, like, okay, I'm out of amnesia. That means she wants it ground, the jar refilled and brought to her. And I hate to admit it, I do it. So yeah.
Another piece of advice, an important one is, and you know, there's three main pieces, especially for people who are growing in places where it's still prohibited, is the 3 rules, man. You have to follow those 3 rules. Very, very, very important. You know, you don't tell anybody about the grow, you don't sell, and you cover the smell of the grow, because you don't want people finding out about it. That's like, because you don't just have to worry about police, you have to worry about people coming to steal the crop as well. You know, there's lots you have to be concerned about. So just keep it to yourself, man. Nobody needs to know about this shit. If you want to talk about your grow with somebody, then you head over to the forum, Percys Grow Room.com, and you can talk about it with us all day long. But don't tell anybody in real life. And you might want to tell your friend, like, I can trust Dave. Dave's not going to tell anybody, you know, and he ain't going to kick my door off. But we'll have a conversation with somebody at some point and mention it to them. And then that person mentions it to their friend. And it just gets spread around. Before you know it, there's people who know about your grow, but you don't even know about your grow. You know, so just don't tell anybody, man. Keep it to yourself.
Yeah, it was good advice. I was told early on, it's like, you know, people who don't grow think it's cool to know somebody who does. So they will repeat the fact that they know somebody, and that will get repeated again and again and again. It will grow. You know, the rumor will grow. And so, you know, don't do it. Just don't need to. Come to Percy's, talk to us. We don't ask questions.
Even here in Canada, under legalization, you would think, you know, and it is true to a point. People don't give a fuck so much, but people still, like, you know, oh, you grow? Oh, wow. Because, like, most people that grow here kind of aren't, you know, long-term growers like myself or other people. So, yeah, it's like, I'm pretty open about my shit because I'm, you know, here and doing what I'm doing here. And I'm on this fucking show right now, you know, doing what I'm doing. Because I'm trying to make some sort of career type shit out of it eventually. But yeah, it's still like something I kind of worry about sometimes. I don't bring people to my house that I don't absolutely 100% trust. And even that, it's like, you know, so yeah, it's still a thing here in Canada. People still get their shit stolen. So it's a good advice. Keep it on a DL.
Yeah. If you want to do it long term, it's not going to happen if you're telling everyone about it.
That's it. Keep it to yourself, man. And then just choose the right medium for you as well. You have to know how much cannabis you're going to need throughout a grow cycle, for example. And you have to also know how much time you can spend on that grow as well. So, you know, if you can't be around it every day, you can only visit a couple of times a week, then maybe soil's going to be the best option. But if you can be there every day and you want to keep control of things, then maybe hydro's the best option. Just make sure you know which medium, you have the right one, because you don't want to be too stressed. Like you don't have time to go visit the fucking grow room today, so you're gonna get stressed about it. You don't have time to water it and get runoff and shit. So you just choose what's best for you, because you want to try and enjoy it. And hydro can take a lot of time when soil could be more forgiving in that aspect. So
on that same point, choose a strain that's hardy and grows without too much stress input, if you know what I mean. Like, so don't be out there growing exotics that need specific temps and VPDs and things. Just start easy. Start with a widow, start with lights, something that you can, that's really going to essentially grow itself with very little input from you. That way you get to learn how it runs through its paces, what it does, when it does it, what you need to give it, and then you can move into those other exotics. I mean, if you want to go with an exotic straight up, go nuts. But when shit goes sideways, it goes sideways. So something that you don't have to worry about those little things, and it's a bit more sort of pest resistant and mold resistant and stuff. That's sort of the way. That for most new growers, that's what I tell them. Go with something easy.
Yeah, I'd also add to that for a new grower, look at something that's going to be a little bit shorter flowering because your patience is not going to be there.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
You want something that's going to be finishing in 7 to 8 weeks, something like that for your first grow, pretty much.
Yeah.
You know, ideally that would be nice.
Yeah, don't be growing no 32-week sativas or something like that.
Well, I mean, I've seen people jump on a super silver haze first run 16 weeks and, you know, have to get halfway through it. It's like, oh my gosh.
Yep.
And then, you know, you harvest it and you still got a 3-month cure. So,
Yeah, mission, man. It takes longer than expected. Expect it to take longer. That's another good tip. You know, expect it to take longer than expected because
the first run does, doesn't it?
Yeah, for sure. And it can feel like it takes forever, but it's worth it to wait until it gets to the right time and harvest and enjoying it properly. It's important.
Yeah, because you do forget that you've also got that, you know, almost a month afterwards that's your dry and cure period. So, you know, add that into if it's your first run.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, we understand your first run, you're gonna snitch a bud and you're gonna fast dry it. We all do it. It's all, everybody here's done it once upon a time. So yeah, we understand, but we're trying to be real with you.
There's another important one where you can skip paying the big price tag for certain things, like grow tent doesn't matter so much. You can get the cheap one of that and upgrade later on. But when it comes to your light, you want to try and get the best one you possibly can, because that's an important piece of the whole grow setup. But then when it comes to pH meters and EC meters as well, you don't want to buy cheap ones of those because they'll be unreliable and they'll need calibrating more often. It's better to pay that extra bit and get good reliable EC and pH meters. Somewhere like Blue Labs always have good ones, and Essentials have decent ones as well. But any cheaper than that, and you're looking at possibly having problems with them.
Well, and you right there is another good tip right off the bat. You know, if you're growing cannabis, you probably need a pH meter.
Yeah.
So put it in your startup costs, because a lot of people try to start without a pH meter and it can cause you more problems than it's worth. So by all means, that's one of the first pieces of equipment you need. And if you're in any kind of hydro, you need an EC meter.
Yeah.
And so the pH meter, especially, like, I don't test my runoff or anything like that, like you guys do, or EC for that matter. I don't, because, you know, my super soil is kind of self, you know, whatever, doing it. It does what it does by itself. But if for nothing else, test your water wherever you are. So you need to do a water test with whatever water source you're going to be using, because pH is important in terms of your irrigation water. It can throw off your pH in your soil quite quickly, and it's a really easy thing to fix. You know, once you know where your pH is out of your tap water, your well water, your river water, whatever the fuck water you're using, you might not have to adjust it at all. But if you do, then like for me, my water stays pretty much constant in terms of its quality coming out of the tap all year round, and I don't have to measure it anymore. But I know exactly how much pH down I need to use when I have to adjust it, right? So, and it's important that I do, because, like I said, it can fuck up the pH in your plants, in your root zone, and that's not good.
Yeah, it causes trouble then.
Yeah. So yeah, it's good advice. Get a good one.
I've got another one here, because this one has fucked me up in the early days. Is don't grow too many plants in your tent. You know, if you're doing a normal grow, unless you're doing a micro grow specifically where you can have more plants, but if you expect to just grow a few normal plants, then don't try putting like 7 of them in a 4x4 tent. I've tried that and it didn't go too well. So, you know, 2 foot by 2 foot, like a 4 foot square space, is what you want to put aside for each plant. So, and sorry, 2 foot by 2 foot. Yeah, that's what I said, isn't it? 2 foot by 2 foot, 4 foot square. So in a 4 foot tent, for example, 4 foot by 4 foot, 1.2 by 1.2 meter tent, you'd fit 4 plants in there. Don't try and put 5, you know, and definitely don't try and put 6. Just a 4 is plenty, unless you're specifically doing a micro grow.
Or if you're doing something like Bubble Hawk does, he likes to grow them bigger and lets the whole plant take the tent.
One plant,
but in that
4
case,
by
you're
4.
still not overcrowding. So yeah, by all means, give them space to grow.
Yeah, it is a lot of trimming for one plant, though, just so you're aware. That's a
four by
lot.
four.
Yeah, 4x4 single.
I
Use
did
like the
eight
last.
my last run.
Oh, really? The last 4x8 run I started with 4, culled down to 3, and ended up with one of the Clark Kent's armpits taking over a full side.
Yeah. I mean, as long as you don't overextend the plants onto them, you know, you maximize your canopy space, but not overdo it. Is how I try to do it. Yeah.
Yeah, and
But-
pot size is important when it comes to things like that as well. The size of the plant. Make sure you've got a decent
Yeah.
sized pot, but it would depend on what medium you're using as well. If you're growing in soil, then especially living soil, you're going to tend to need bigger pots so the microbes and the bacteria in the soil can have a good, enough space to thrive. But if you're going for hydroponics, then you can go for a smaller pot, especially like cocoa, rock wool, and things like that. 10 to 12 liter pots are usually fine for cocoa and soilless mediums like that. But when you're doing deep water culture, the DWC, then you want like a 20 to 25 liter bucket of water for that, so there's plenty of root space.
5 gal fabric pots for the cocoa. Send it.
If you want the monsters, yes.
Yeah. But it's I'll feed them up to 3 times a day. So at that point you've got to have the time.
Yeah, that's a lot, man. That's a lot of feeding. You can do it auto feed, do you?
Well, so I basically make up a res, and then it just comes on. I've got it set to come on for a couple of minutes in the middle of the day, and so it's about 100-liter res, and I just fill that up, and I'll go through a res every couple of days.
And there's another one we can do for you. Another tip there is get yourself a fucking air stone. It doesn't matter what medium you're in, whether it's hydroponic or soil or what. Just getting an air stone, and when you mix up your bottle or your bucket with all your nutrients in and your water before you feed your plants, then you can use an air stone in there. Just add a little bit of oxygen and keep it bubbling. The plants are happy with that shit. So even if it's soil, even if you're just going to use water, then drop it in there. 24 hours. If you got tap water, for example, and you get your air stone and drop it in there 24 hours before your plants need feeding, then it'll help all the chlorine evaporate out of the water, and just add a shitload of air to it. So the plants like that, and the soil likes that, and the microbes like that too. So get an air stone, man. Get an air stone. It's not too expensive.
You can let your res sit. Don't let it sit for too long. That's the biggest thing. Because as it sits, and you want the water moving to keep it all mixed as well. So especially if you're using things like organic teas and things like that, the heavier stuff's going to fall to the bottom, and then it's going to get sucked up by your pump, because your pump's going to be at the bottom anyway. So, well, usually. So if you want to, if you just don't, well, too long's like more than half a day. So for me, I wouldn't be letting it sit more than half a day without having some form of run through, and I'm still stirring it if I can. But if I'm not going to be in there worrying about it and messing around with it, then I'll have something in there to keep the water moving, like a air stone or another pump, just moving water around a bit.
What do you say, Marge? You got any pieces of advice you could offer there?
I think the one thing I would say is, if you're new to growing or you're thinking about doing it, consider starting out with a micro grow. Or even if you've been growing for a while, but you want to try something out new, and you're not really sure how you're going to like it, a micro grow is a really easy way to get into it without investing a ton of money or time or energy. And you can see if, you're even really into growing, or if you're just going to kill everything, then you start, which you probably shouldn't if you're getting good advice from books and Percys. But I've been really enjoying doing the micro grows, because I don't have a lot of time and space to do like a bigger setup right now, but it still allows me to keep growing. And I'm puttering around, checking them out every single day, and I really like it. But
and that's another good one with the micro grows as well, because there's something that we all underestimated the first time round, and that's how long trimming takes.
Right.
Trimming is a fucking mission. But
Well,
if you're doing the micro,
there's a reason it's called trim jail, right?
Oh God. I spent 16 hours trimming 4 big butter blue cheese plants, which are growing DWC way back in the day. And that broke me. And I still haven't, it's been like a decade since then. And I still hate trimming because of that day. You know, so you have to be prepared for your trim. Right?
Well,
Especially
one
with the
reason I
normal-
became a better trainer was so that I could make my trim easier. I mean, I'd rather train the plant to grow very large buds and not have to deal with the small little bitty things everywhere. So, I mean, I guess my tip would be learn how to train, learn how to grow larger buds, and you'll spend less time in trim jail.
Yeah, and that's a good way to get a better yield as well, is by doing some training. And we've done an episode on lustrous training or scrugging at least. So, what else was going to say? There's another one, but yeah, when it comes to trimming, make sure you're properly prepared. You know, get some food ready that you ain't gonna have to go out and prepare anything, because once you've started, you're gonna stink. You know, on these bigger harvests, not when you've got a few micro grows, but you know, if you've got the 4 plants in a 1.2 by 1.2 meter tent, for example, then you got to set aside at least an hour per plant when you're doing the trimming. At least you want more like 2. You know, you should be listening to 1 episode of High and Homegrown per each plant that is harvested. So it takes a fucking while, man. 2 hours is a good amount of time, 2.5 hours for each plant. So
Yeah, but
it's
you
a
know how
mission.
it goes, Mackie. The first plant you trim in, those buds would look really, really, really nice. You know, by the time you get them to that last plant, that's close enough. I don't need to take that off. Throw it in the pile. Throw it in the pile. It's good. I'll get it later.
I usually start and they're nice, manicured, and then I
Oh,
get about
yeah.
halfway through and there's a little bit more left on it. And then by the time I get to the end, it's just like this square bud.
Clap, 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 done.
But yeah, that being properly prepared for your harvest is definitely a good one. You know, you don't want to be doing anything the next day. Either try to get a couple of days off work. Make sure you got enough scissors. Want some good scissors and a few pairs, not just 1 pair. Yeah, and also use gloves with that as well, so you can put them in the freezer and get your scissor hash and shit afterwards. That's what I'm saying.
But you are right about the trimming. You don't really have to do that as much with the micro grows. There's very little trimming involved. And of course, your yields aren't as big. But if anybody's seen any of the pictures that TG has posted recently of some of his micro grows, because I'm still working on getting mine to look like that. But I mean, those are some pretty fantastic looking buds. So
I actually just chopped 3 of them down last night. I made a video too, but I fucked up with some like misweighing, and I can't post that because it sounds like I'm an idiot. So we'll be making a new harvest video.
Editing is your friend, bro.
Yeah.
That's only audio. You can chop out audio.
It's gonna be like, it's half the fucking video. So,
but what kind of yields did you get from those micros?
Well, I can't say. You'll have to watch the video because
but you're not issuing the video.
No, I will. I'm gonna make a new one because I still have 7 plants to cut down yet. I only cut 3 of them down. But yeah, you know how long it were the purple god buds, for anybody that's been paying attention to those videos. The purple god buds. Guess how long they took me?
65 days.
No, I mean like to trim.
Oh,
to Mark's point.
About 30 seconds.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah.
Probably 25 seconds. Just because it's a single bud stick that you just go, you know. And if you use the right cultivars and stuff, you can just almost leave all the leaves on because a lot of them are so frosty and shit. And it's I didn't get very much so far because these plants the purple god buds were tiny, but the ones in the back, my Charlotte's Angel crossed with Crystalline Entity, those are fucking huge. They look like
they were enormous.
Yeah.
Billy Bonds bought a good one up there a couple of times. Don't rub your eyes when you're trimming. Try not to get that THC in your eyes, man, because it stings.
Burns.
That's it. I've never done that.
Yeah, it's bad. It's bad.
Eyes and trichomes don't mix.
Yeah.
I don't know. What more advice do we have? I mean, there's so many things, but you have to learn a lot as you just go through. And
I have a good one. You know, when you need stuff, don't just like go to a fucking buy it all website. No offense to the grow shops, and it's good that they offer this stuff because it's there, and usually they're fairly competitively priced, I guess. But like, I'm a big fan of recycling, or more appropriately, upcycling. So if you have shit around the house, like for plant risers, for example, I was just posting about this, forget, in the hot box, I think, for Martin's hot box, because people were asking about these things to keep your plant out of the water. And I'm like, just use fucking bottle caps, right? You know, milk jugs or orange juice container tops or whatever, and then put those in your tray, and you can use that to raise your plants up.
Like
I do it.
MacGyver, that shit, right?
MacGyver. Back to MacGyver. Yeah. Be MacGyver is my, or MacGruber. Well, probably not MacGruber. He's kind of dumb, but yeah, like find shit around the house that will work, right? I use fucking paper clips to tie my plant down. I unwind the paper clip, and then because like I'm really cheap, right? I could go buy a $2 thing of plant ties, but I'm like, yeah, I get lots of paper clips. I'll just use those, and they work, you know, just fine for my purposes. Shit like that, right? So
we got another good one here from Billy Buns, and this is something I've fucked up with in the past as well. Labeling your plants properly.
Oh, yeah.
Don't just do it with like a sticker on the pot and things like that, because if it gets wet, it's falling off, and then you lose what the fuck it was. That's a
Don't think you'll remember either, because you fucking won't.
You should know by the smoke, right? You guys should know by
you should know by the smoke at the end, right? Yeah.
True.
But it's an important one, man. You have to really make sure you get that right. Use the things that you actually put in the soil. There's them
that backfired on me once when I transplanted, and the damn thing fell out.
And that's
like, don't use popsicle sticks. Don't use wood and shit. Use plastic. Like label them, even with like old fucking spoons, plastic spoons and knives. Those work great for plant labels, and just write on there with a permanent marker. But do something, keep track of your shit.
And that's it. And keep it in the soil. And when you transplant, like Monkey said, make sure you move the fucking thing with it.
Exactly. You know? It was fortunate that I had 2 of the same strain. So as it grew, I was like, okay, this one looks like this one. I know what I had. But, yeah.
But that's an important one, man. It's an important one. Make sure you label your pots properly.
And your pot once it's in the jar.
Yeah, that is, it's important.
What are you saying there, Bob?
Well, I was going to say, especially as a new grower, it is a great idea to start a diary. I know this is going to be a shameless plug, but if you jump on the forum, start a diary, then you've got yourself something to go back on. So, because usually if something's going to go wrong, it'll be from something you did a few days, a few weeks prior, before you start seeing those things come up. And if you've got something to go back and look at what you were doing at that time, then it's easier for you to come through and work out what the problem may be, rather than just blindly hoping. And the other side of that too is if you're running photos or even running autos, you've got a timeline. You know when you popped it in the soil, you know when it went into flower or when you switched over, all that sort of thing. It all matters, and feed ratios. That's the other side of that too. You've got your feed ratios down, because the amount of times I've forgotten feed ratios because that's sweet. I'll just add a little bit more today and then a little bit less on this one. And then all of a sudden everything's fucked and you can't remember where you were. Happens.
That's why I keep a hard copy notebook right there by my feed where our mix feeds, and I write down the current mix. And if I decide to change it, I write down what I change it to. So I'll always have a reference of where I was last.
I got another good one. Yeah. Defoliation, man.
Oh, that's a big one there, man.
Yeah. It's like, don't just go chopping shit off your plant for no reason. They just leave it alone.
If you search the internet to try and figure out how to grow for the first time, you're gonna find people that'll tell you that those families aren't needed. Get rid of them. Oh my gosh! Please don't mutilate your plants.
You tuck them out the way if you can, if you want to, but it's better for each leaf to catch as much light as possible, because that's what makes plant food. And when we're not saying defoliation is a bad thing, because it's not. It's the correct thing to do, but it has to be done at the right times of growth. If you're during the flowering stage and this is where your plant's going to start growing and like doubling or even trebling in size over just a couple of weeks, don't take anything off until you see pom-poms forming, like the proper female flowers, because that's going through regenerative growth stage. And if you do any trimming, then the plant's going to carry on stretching like a motherfucker for ages. So wait until that's finished before you do any defoliation, like your lollipopping and things like that. That shouldn't be done until them flowers are showing. So just
you'll see it settle too. That's the other side, is when they stretch it, they'll go feral and then they'll just stop. Like they kind of just slow up a little bit, and then they're not getting any taller.
Put the brakes on, and they're done. Yeah.
Yeah, and then you'll see, as you said, you see those little afro things come up, and they'll start to stack on a little bit. Then, yeah, okay, get in there with some scissors, clear out some of the stuff, get some airflow going through. But just remember, they're solar panels. The more you leave on there, the better it's going to be. But you want to at least clear and let some airflow through, and that'll help with things like mildew and mold and stuff like that later on down the track.
Yeah,
TG
don't
had a
expect
good
to be
one.
an expert first time you try and do any kind of that kind of pruning. Come over to Percy's, ask questions. We'll help you. We'll guide you through it.
The TG got a good one there as well. Where did it go? Don't fall for the hype.
Yeah,
man, that's very fucking important, everybody. I mean, you're going to see all these nutrient bottles and different foods for the plants, and it's going to be like they'll make out like you need this shit. You need this shit, £80 a bottle, but you really don't. And you can go with the basic food. I mean, just using canna A and B, it will get you through a grow, start to finish.
There's always like something new that's going to make your buds swell that much more and fatten up and be that much more terpy and this and that. But again, cannabis, like I said in the chat, that cannabis is a plant, and you can grow it with regular plant shit. You don't need any of that. You can use it, it'll work probably, but it's probably excessive and not doing what it's actually says it's probably doing in the way that it might say it should do it, if you know what I mean. So again, keep it simple and don't fall for the big boobed. I always say on the labels, they're all fancy.
Don't need to buy the
shiny,
whole nutrient
holographic.
line.
They're keeping
grow
behind
your
fucking
weed with.
locked doors in a lot of places. For Christ's sake. What the fuck?
Well, I mean, it was I'm not going to
Available.
mention any names, but you go to some of the sites, it's like the expert grower category, and they've got every supplement of the grow line
Yeah.
listed. On week 1, you're doing this, It's so complicated. It's like, man, it's a chemistry degree to go ahead and mix nutrients that day. Nah, you don't need that by all means.
Yeah.
I have a couple that I add to my basics just because I found this is what I want to do. But I'm with TG. You don't really need them. I use them because it makes it what I want it.
And here as well, just like segue from this in the chat, you can make your own nutrients at home if you have good compost or good worm bin. Then you can make your own nutrients at home. You don't have to go and buy it all from a shop. You can make your own shit.
Banana teas and things like that.
So do that.
That is so good on so many levels. Not to mention you save money. You have your ingredients you need. You're diverting from the landfill and helping avert climate change shit. And it's less work probably than fucking hauling this smelly shitty garbage bag out and whatever. So like the more you can do at your house or your area, wherever you might be, the better locally, kind of thing. So I mean, just keep it simple and remember it's a plant, right? So just keep it healthy the whole time and you'll result in very excellent results. Like that's how it goes.
Kenneth in there has another good one. He said, if there are heat issues during the summer, make the lights come on at night, and also avoids more expensive times of the day, the cost of living and all that. For sure, man. Run your lights overnight if you can. That's just going to help with temperature fluctuations, and usually people are at home at night as well, so that's when you can tend to them, before you go to bed or early in the morning if there's enough time. So do that shit.
And on that same point, if you live in an area that it's going to be absolutely ridiculous to cool that room over a summer and stuff, like it's the same here over Christmas here, it gets so damn hot. It's like 35 to 40 outside. It's impossible to keep a grow room cool enough to be viable by the time you're done. Like you end up paying double the cost because you're cooling the house and the grow tent even at night, because we can get temps of like 30 degrees and it's like midnight, so it still stays warm. So you got to be careful with that. Most of the time, if you're going to do indoor runs here, you're better off sort of just at the tail end of summer to start and push through winter all the way up through until spring, and then you're going to be all right. Well, not have to pay extra money on fucking aircon and whatever else.
I mean, there's so many different tips and tricks to help people, Just have an easier grow, make an easier time of it. Because it can get stressful sometimes. If things ain't going in the right direction, you're having trouble and you're just getting a bit overwhelmed with all the information out there. It can make people not enjoy the hobby so much. And that's not what we want. We want everybody to enjoy this shit. So if you need any help at all, you can head over to percysgrow.com, or you can even send us an email and we'll answer questions on the show like this.
Yeah, that's actually really good advice. I can actually speak personally to that. Don't overdo it, with plants, with just trying to do too much, whether you want to get into breeding or something, or like the last couple weeks I've been harvesting a fuckload, and it's again, I was talking about the snow and shit, so it's not super conducive really for me to do anything drying wise right now. I don't have a ton of room, and the amount of cannabis that I have coming down is in excess of my drying space. And so I've been very stressed. I'll just put it about potentially degrading stuff and wasting all this time that
first world problems, that isn't it? It's that I'm
It is,
running out of drying space for all of my cannabis.
I know, but it's just I overdid it, right? Or I didn't overdo it, I just timed it very poorly, and so I've been very stressed, about shit in the last few weeks because I don't want to ruin anything, and I could have avoided this easily, and I was kind of dumb. So try to proper planning and
and the most important thing is just start doing it, man. That's the best tip you can get overall. Just start doing it. If you haven't grown cannabis before, do it, man. Find a way. Even if you have to start off with a small grow in a small space and upgrade over time, then that's perfectly okay, man. You just have to get started. Do it. Have to grow your own plants, man, your own cannabis. It saves you a stupid amount of money. It's a lot less risk, and it's just better cannabis. Simple.
So Kenneth had a good question there about increasing humidity in early veg. The cheapest way to do that is get yourself a pot of water and a towel, stick the one end of that, wet it down, obviously, wring it out, stick one end in the pot, hang up and blow a fan over it. That'll increase your humidity. And it's cheap.
Well, I
Cost
do
you
that
nothing.
actually. I do it in a dry intent if I have dry conditions around it in wintertime.
Yep. Or you can go and get humidifiers or swamp coolers, whatever you want. I've got a big swamp cooler for that.
You don't necessarily need that though. If you're on your first grow and you hear about all this gear that you need, you need this, heaters, coolers, humidifiers, dehumidifiers, and all this shit. You need a tent, you need a light, and you need the pots and whatever you're going to grow them in, and extraction. And if you need to start off with the bare minimum, then just start off with the bare minimum and upgrade over time.
I did it.
Yeah, all these extras, you just get them as you go. You're not going to need them to get through. You'll get through quite a few grows without having to go that far. It's only if you start growing things that need specific VPDs and you have to worry about it being perfect grow condition for that thing to flourish. That's when you start looking into that sort of thing. But if you're just growing just to get yourself some smoke and get yourself in front, no reason why you can't do that easily and cheaply and get out of it fairly cheap. As you said, cheap tent, the light, that's going to be a big thing. And then obviously your medium. So if you're going to go things like hydro mediums, then you're going to be obviously have to add the cost of then nutrients from there as well. So just bear that in mind.
Yeah, man. So lots of tips and tricks. So if you need any help at all, you head over to percysgrow.com or send us an email or find us on social media, and we'll be able to answer any questions that you have there. But we also have some listener mail questions that we should cover as well. And especially this one about Showtime from South Scilly. So I thought we'd hit this one first. We just got daylight savings here. Is the Showtime still the same time in Britain? And we covered this in the Cannabis News, but it's better for us to cover it again so it goes out into the 2 different episodes. But the whole daylight saving things is confusing because it happens here in the UK at 1 week, and then Canada the next week, and then somewhere else the next week, and it takes a few weeks for everybody to just over it. So you can head over to YouTube channel, and that will tell you how long it is until the next stream starts, and it will tell you exactly what time it will start in the area you're checking the video out from. So that's helpful. But pretty much it's always 9 p.m. UK time. And when we're doing the GMT, it's at 9 p.m. And when we're doing the British summer time, it's at 9 p.m. So but, you know, it's always GMT or UK time. But we're back on GMT now. The whole British summertime thing is unfortunately over. And we're all going to freeze to death in the coming months. But yeah, just if you're ever worried and you don't know what time it's going to start for you, just check out the Google clock and see what time it is GMT and make the adjustment. Or go and check out a YouTube video.
Make sure you subscribe and hit the bell, and it'll also send you an alert.
Yeah, notifications for sure. Good idea. Yeah, so it's 9 p.m. in the UK. Where, did you figure out what time it is in Australia there, Bawar?
yeah. So 8 a.m. Australian Eastern Daylight Savings Time. So that's on East Coast. So for New South Wales and for Victoria, it'll start an hour earlier at 7 a.m. for those in Queensland, and I believe the NT in South Australia, and then it'll start at 5 a.m. That's right, 3 hours, 5 a.m. for anyone on the West Coast.
I do remember they had some weird time zones over there in Australia. When we went there, our 24-hour stream, GB was trying to keep up with it. It was unusual.
And what about US time, Monkey? 3 p.m. Eastern, did you say? Am I right?
It'd be a 4 p.m. Eastern, a 3 Central, 1 p.m. Pacific time, 2 p.m. Mountain time. That's all of our time zones, except for, of course, Hawaii sitting out there.
Yeah, and different places in Europe. We're only a few hours off. But yeah, so that's when we start, everybody. It'll be good if we could see anybody over on the YouTube shows, youtube.com/high-on-homegrown every Sunday at whatever time we've just mentioned here. So we'll see you there. Don't be late. Don't be late because you'll miss the rants.
The rants.
And then we got another one from I'm Sparky. One from I'm Sparky here. When assessing the completeness of a cure, what is a good average percentage of lost weight in water content before placing in jars? It seems this would be a good method to use in addition to the traditional pencil-sized snap test.
You mean drying, not curing, right?
That's what I was thinking. Yeah.
Yeah.
They often get confused. A lot of people conflate the two for some, like, I guess they are similar processes, but you need to dry. You have to dry.
Yeah.
You don't need to cure, but you know, you should.
It's just better to. Yeah.
Yeah. But to your point, I would say 25% moisture or 75% moisture loss.
Right. 24% weight of the wet weight is dry plant generally.
But the best way to tell is by snapping those jars. The way snapping the stems and at the bottom of the bud as well. Don't like snap it at the bottom of the branch and then take the bud off at the top. But on the base of the bud, just see if it snaps or bends. And if it snaps, it's good to go in jars, man.
I mean, new growers sometimes are curious what it's going to yield in it after they harvest it. So if you do your wet weight, generally after drying, it's going to be 1/4 of what you just weighed wet.
Very close, actually. It works really well.
Pretty darn close. Great way to do those guessing games. You know, guess the dry weight.
Yeah, man.
I just dry, cure, and then weigh.
That works.
If I weigh it wet, I'm always disappointed.
I don't even weigh it, man. Don't even weigh the shit. It's disgusting. I don't
weigh
care.
it anymore. I do weigh before I put it up for cure, but
I like weighing, you know, because I like to know the efficiency of the grow or whatever. Grams per watt. It's
job well done.
You know, light to light, because I do, you know, demos of lights or whatever, or I try to. And it's interesting to see the difference because I grow pretty much everything else is consistent. The only thing that would be different would be the strains and the light sometimes. But, you know, data like that's pretty cool. But yeah, anyway.
Because you're running the Spider Farmer SE 5000 in there?
The 5000, yeah, now I am. I used to have just a quantum board, the standard 4-panel quantum board, but this thing has way better coverage, and I got like a 1/4 pound per plant, and I got 8 plants in that thing, so like
nice.
that's a good weed.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I really like those ones because I got the 7,000 for mine, and it covered the coverage on it's perfect.
Yeah.
Like, you get like zero fall off.
I did watch a video. Shane did a new review on GML's new Tarantula Vulcan. That motherfucker set some records.
Yeah.
But, yeah, it's the best light there is on the market now, apparently.
Sweet.
Efficiency wise, it looks fucking badass, but it's yeah, I don't know if I'll get that one. I'm pretty happy with my shit now, but like fuck. There's some beasts out there now for sure. Coverage wise, coverage is important, really important. Spectrum and coverage, you know, most lights will have concentrations of it in the middle, and then you really die off as you move to the outsides a lot of the time. But so you know, you don't get the same amount of light in those outside plants, and you don't get the same amount of yield at all. So important, but
yeah, man. So we have another question here from South Philly. We want to get the next couple done before the next 420 arrives. South Silly also asks here, not sure if it's been covered already, but cleaning, smoking, and vaping devices, glass bongs, different vapes, pipes, cleaning products, options versus natural DIY. Just a thought. I have a 14-inch long glass Gandalf that is a nightmare to clean. Isopropyl alcohol is your best friend when it comes to cleaning, smoking shit.
Yeah,
That's all I
isopropyl and
use.
salt.
Yeah.
He had mentioned down later in the thread that the openings are very small in here, and he has trouble getting anything of size down in to help him scrub with. But you know, this table salt's going to be the best thing you can do. But
what about like a really fat piece of string or something that would, you know, basically fill the whole hole that you could feed through somehow? Maybe I guess you couldn't get it all the way through to pull through that.
Like cleaning the car on a rifle.
Yeah, like yeah.
Well, he said he successful with an extra long pipe cleaner after it's been soaked for a while, is what he said. But he was just looking at if there's anybody has anything that, you know, maybe some magic stuff that just melts everything out and you're done. I'm kind of curious if it's an all glass Gandalf. I know acetone will clean glass much more aggressively than alcohol will. I'm just curious if that would be a better choice. But of course, it's going to be way more aggressive and dangerous on your hands and everything else.
Would you use isopropyl on wooden pipes?
Yes, isopropyl works fine on wooden pipes as long as they're finished with a polyurethane, which is going to be isopropyl resistant. But again, you do not want to use anything but isopropyl on wooden pipes because of that.
Right.
Stonewolf, don't use metho, bro. Please don't use metho. It leaves an oily film on things. So unless you rinse it completely, it'll eat all the tar. It'll strip a whole lot of stuff, but you've got to be careful. Because the last thing you want to be breathing in fumes from metho.
Now I know I'll try to repeat it as best as I can remember it. I know Spartan Grown had mentioned that someone was using natural terpenes to clean pipes with, glass pipes, and they were using orange peels that had been basically, after you peel the orange, you soak it in vinegar, and after a while, he says the terpenes are absorbed by the vinegar, and you take and dilute the vinegar with water and use that to clean the pipes.
No way.
Right.
So, I mean, this is all memory. I've never done it.
We have a product here called Orange TKO that I use to clean my pipes.
Sounds similar.
It's food grade delimonene with a proprietary emulsifier. You mix it with a little bit of water, and like it cleans fucking everything. It's so good. Not only like resin. I actually tried to get it like passed for QA at work for cleaning our boiling flask and distillation, because it's really good. But yeah, like terpenes are solvents themselves, right? You can dissolve, like that's kind of like vaguely the process of mining diamonds, where the terpenes and the THCA crystals separate, you know, out because they're semi-soluble in each other or whatever. Like, but yeah, terpenes definitely work for sure. You got to be careful because they're pretty, you know, smelly and can be irritable. Certain, I think delimonene is used in, like you said, the orange shit. That's what that is. So
orange oil.
Yeah, I use it all the time. It works great. Yeah.
What's this Mother Nature wizardry about a fungal solution? that cleans dab rigs.
Oh yeah.
That doesn't surprise
You've got
me.
me interested. You've got me
Wait,
really
weird,
interested.
this
man.
fucking moldy pipe, and then you just rinse it out or something.
Well, we have one more question here from Backblast from over at the forum. When making bubble hash, is it better to use fresh frozen or dry flower trim? Flower slash trim.
Depends what hash you're making.
Right. Can you elaborate?
So if you're going for like live hash, then you want to use fresh frozen and quickly. So you want to basically freeze it and then go straight, like, you know, once it's frozen, maybe a day or so in the freezer, and then wash it. Then you're going to get the biggest amount of terps and everything off it. But if you're just going for just standard dry sift hash, like your trim hash or whatever, then yeah, it doesn't really matter. You can go the other way, but you get the best flavor and the best terps out of fresh frozen. That's how I make mine. I just chop it, freeze it straight in, and then put it through the washing machine about a day or two later, and it comes out terpy as fuck.
Nice. Do you make you've been making hash lately, TG? Got anything to add to that?
No. No hash. I'm gonna do some dry sips with my bubble bags with some dry ice and shit, I think, but eventually. But no, fresh frozen. I don't know too much about the fresh frozen. Yeah, you know, I would say Bubble's right, or he's definitely, he does it, so he knows more than I do about it. But yeah.
Sweet.
I just can't remember what they call it. I've just done it for that long now. I don't even think about it.
Gilbert would probably know too. He's more of a hash.
Yeah,
kind of
definitely did have all the answers for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. So cool.
I do
Hope
know
that
it's
answers your
tasty.
questions, everybody. But I think that's it for the questions and the tips and tricks. Of course, there's always more tips and tricks. This list is not exhaustive and all that shit. There's plenty more. If you have any specific questions that you'd like us to answer, then you can find us over at percysgrowroom.com and all of that sandwich shit. And there we go, everybody. Now, just like we said in this episode, if you want to know what time the next live show is, head over to our YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/high-on-homegrown, and you'll see the next episode is scheduled there, and that will tell you what time it starts for you wherever you are in the world. And just so you know, next week's episode is going to be about how to get big yields from your cannabis grow. So it's something everybody should be tuning in for, because that's something that we all like to see, right? In the meantime, as usual, as I say every week, thank you very much for downloading and listening to the show. We massively appreciate every single one of you listeners who take the time to download and listen to the show. It's awesome. Thank you very much. And I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I hope you enjoy the next episode too. So thank you. Have a good week. Have a good weekend. I hope to see you on the live show on Sunday. But if not, we'll be back with the cannabis news on Monday. We'll see you then. Have a good weekend, everybody. Stay high, stay safe, and we'll see you on Sunday, hopefully. Goodbye.